This episode is brought to you by Prime. What if you had one more chance with the one that got away?
Sam.
You came home.
Based on the best-selling novel from Carly Fortune. Every Year After follows childhood friends Sam and Percy as they reunite in the dreamy, nostalgic lakeside town of Barry's Bay.
Love can be hard to find. So if you're lucky enough to find that person, never let go.
A second chance at first love. Every Year After, streaming June 10th, only on Prime.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot stop your new clients from emailing you at 3 a.m. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you be in 3 places at once. And while we can't help you organize your calendar, LinkedIn can help you land more clients so you have a calendar to organize. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
Hello, and welcome back to Lovely. Happy Friday. Today's episode feels very strangely well-timed. Let me tell you why. Just a few hours ago, I was at work and I was saying bye to my coworker. It was her last day of work. Naturally, just like any person would, it's like, oh, where are you going next? What's the next gig? And she looked at me and she's like, no, nowhere. I'm just quitting. I want to travel. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, how long are you traveling for? She's like, I don't know. It's just like a one-way ticket. Like, I haven't figured it out. Mind you, has been in the corporate life career for like 6 years and just, decided that it was time we leave and just travel and figure it out. And the funny thing is, she's actually the second person in the last few months on my team who's done exactly that. I don't think the problem is my team because I still love working there. But like same story, right? Like no new job lined up, no 5-year plan, no carefully curated, mapped out next step. Just a decision to walk away from the life that they built and no longer is serving them right now and then just see what happens next. When I hear that, my nervous system is screaming. I'm like, what? But I also find it really, really fascinating. I think for a lot of us, the idea sounds exciting right up until we imagine ourselves doing it because it is scary. There's no stability and leaving a stable job, walking away from the title. Maybe you have to think about disappointing people's expectations and then trading certainty for possibility, right? So it's strangely well-timed because I want to explore what kind of mindset allows someone to make that leap and question, what are you willing to let go? What are you willing to risk? What are you running towards? If you're running away, if you can call it running away, what are you leaving behind? So today's guest is Josef Miklavc. He can definitely speak to this topic because he is born in Mexico to an Austrian father and has an Indonesian mother. Grew up across more than 10 countries before the age of 18. Crazy, right? Built a successful corporate career in Australia, walked away from it, and now spends his time building community around the world while documenting what he believes is a happier way to live for him. So let's get into it.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Josef, welcome to Lovely. How are we doing today?
Thank you very much. Doing very well, Meg. Doing very well.
Amazing. And what part of the world are we calling in from today?
Currently calling in from Da Nang, Vietnam, which has been sort of my base for the last 3 years. First came here in 2023 and just keep returning from the whole digital nomad thing and sort of setting up here probably 6 to 8 months every year during the dry season.
Is that like your time limit to stay in a place? Like you aim for about 6 to 8 months?
I'd say minimum. I mean, when I like left my corporate job to go fully remote, I was doing a month minimum in a place. But as time passes, that's typically not long enough to really settle in well. And I think he says, at least as I get older, the novelty wears off of constantly moving. So it creates a little bit more stability and sort of just finding ideally probably two places a year. My whole thing is chasing the sun because I don't have to be fixed in a location.
Okay, so quick question. You have such diversity within your background, diversity of places you've lived at. Let's say you go to a coffee shop and you bump into someone and someone's like, "Where are you from?" Loaded question for you. What's your answer these days?
Short answer will be Australia. I spent 7 years there between the ages of 5 to 11 or 5 to 12. And then I came back when I was 18. And so I became Australian citizen when I was 27. So 4 years ago. And so now I feel like I can say with like a degree of certainty or confidence that it's Australia, but definitely not the full picture.
I definitely want to learn more about you. And I feel like the best way for me to learn about my guests is ask them about their connection to immigrant identity. And I'm very curious to hear how you grew up and what connection do you have to that identity?
I'd say in terms of like immigrant identity, I've really felt like one pretty much all my life in that way. Um, Again, I never lived in the country of either of my parents' origins. So my mother being Indonesian and my father being Austrian, born in Mexico, and then did my first 5 years in Mexico, Greece, and Israel. And so by the time I started to gain consciousness about at 4.5 in 2000, I moved to Australia for the first time. Definitely wasn't from Australia. Both my parents weren't from their first time in the country, lived in 3 countries before that. They were unrelated. It was quite confusing, I think, when I look back. And it still kind of confuses me a little bit today. But can definitely relate with being sort of the outsider in that way, or like felt like I never fully fit in anywhere. There's no country I can go to and be like, oh, he's one of us for sure. Like there's no question. There's always a little bit of like uncertainty there.
And where did you like pick up on this nomadic lifestyle? Like, do your parents kind of live the same way that you do? Or is this something that only you've chosen to do in your family?
I think in a way it was sort of like bred into me, like moving countries. I would say it's definitely bred from my dad ultimately. Like he worked, I guess for context, he worked in hospitality and Hyatt hotels. So yeah, typically doing 2 year contracts. And then he extended just in the Philippines and Australia, which is where we spent sort of half the life there. It's nice to change the environment, to experience new cultures, new places. Though I think the novelty is, albeit slowly wearing off, where I'm like, okay, I kind of want to just like set up somewhere and settle and build the community and the friends and all that. It's hard to maintain when you keep moving. It's sort of a double-edged sword in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going back to like your earlier comment of like feeling like an outsider everywhere. And like when I think about it a little bit more, as you're moving around and you're trying to have that community, because I think that's a big part of your content, your philosophy, right? Like traveling, meeting people, getting to know people, and like being around them and having community. But I think you can't really build community without building intimacy with like people around you. So like what did that look like growing up? Were you a lone wolf growing up, or were you allowed to build that intimacy with your friends, with people that you would have been dating or your family? Walk me through that story.
I'm an only child as well, so I didn't have any siblings to sort of mission it with. I think I learned very early on just how to make friends quickly. You know, you're in a new country, you go to the new school, and so you have to sort of rebuild your network there and make friends again and do that. And so I think friendships is something I've always been quite good at, I guess, developing quite quickly and trying to maintain them even across borders. Um, Relationships, I think, was definitely more challenging. Like we sort of got taught that, I mean, I ended up being the one leaving in the sense like I'm always moving. So I never was that compelled, I think, early on to create like romantic and intimate relationships because I'm like, I'm probably going to leave anyway. And then you're going to have to start again. So
Do you still think like that?
I
Or
don't,
do you want to be in a relationship?
definitely now, we're 31 now.
And what's changed? Is it just the age or like what's changed?
I think age plays a role in it. Trying to do a lot of work over the last 2 years, trying to understand, I guess, how my upbringing affected my approach towards relationships and how I think about them. And now I'm getting quite excited for that prospect to date and find my person in that way. So we're definitely at the stage where I think this is going to become a bit of a priority for me.
My thoughts and prayers to you because dating itself is so freaking hard right now. And I say this
Oh.
being single, trust me, like I can't even imagine like how an added layer of complication of like, hey, like I'm only in this spot for a certain amount of time. Okay, let's get into it. Are you dating right now?
I've begun seeing someone recently, but it's pretty early days.
Okay, and then how did you start chatting with this person? Was it meeting them in person or through an app?
Through Instagram.
Through Instagram. And then what's the process? How did this come to fruition? Like who approached who? Like give me the story.
She actually messaged me on Instagram. If you're watching this, she's
Okay.
gonna
And
love this.
did you like that?
I didn't mind it, I suppose. Just said it was a pretty innocent question, and then just sort of had a bit of a conversation after that. And then we
What was the
ended up
question? I'm
organizing.
nosy. Joseph, I'm nosy as fuck. I'm going to ask you all the questions. So, what was the question? And take me into the brain of Joseph in that exact moment. What did you think? And what did you immediately go to the profile? Did you check? Like, tell me everything.
So the question was, I'm coming to visit Da Nang soon. Like, is it a safe place to travel as like a solo female? Saw the little profile grab, like she looks pretty cute, and just sort of answered the question and just came back with like how long are you in town for? And then we just talked for a couple days, and then ended up organizing a time to meet when she did arrive. And went and did that date down in Hoi An. It was a half-day tour, which I've never done as a first date, but we just got on really well, which has been, I think, quite rare for me in the sense that it just felt very easy and just enjoyable. Yeah, we spent sort of 3-4 days together, and now she's in a different country. And so now we're sort of managing that and trying to navigate what that looks like.
Have you ever done this before, like long distance? Have you had to do it? Because it sounds like you weren't dating for the longest time. This is your first one doing it.
Yeah, I had probably had many opportunities where I could have done long distance, but I just sort of wasn't interested in, I guess, taking that path. You hear a lot about the challenges and things like that. When I look back and sort of reflect on them, I question whether, was I preventing myself from like being open to the idea? I'm a bit of a avoider in terms of like attachment style and things like that in relationships. So I've been thinking, if maybe I was this age now, would those relationships have gone different? Because I feel like I've sort of changed and developed in my viewpoint there and sort of grown a little bit out of that. But I think ultimately, like, compatibility is the most important thing. And if you are compatible with somebody, or you believe you are, then you will make the effort to do the things like distance and put in those extra miles. So we'll see what happens.
How long has this been going on for?
About a month.
And what's been like the most, apart from the distance, like what is like the most challenging thing that you're experiencing with the long distance relationship?
I think it ultimately is just the distance. I typically hate texting. I've like typically always hated that whole messaging, being on your phone. The way in which we're doing it kind of works for both of us in the sense that like you're not sending 30 messages a day. You're doing it like 3 times, but there's just multiple threads going on at once. So you can just, and so like there's a good level of depth. We're talking about a lot of things. We're finding out a lot about each other. But it's like almost kind of efficient with the time zone difference and things like that as well. And then the calls, once or twice a week, depending on schedules. Had one last night. Talked about this actually.
Is she going to listen to this?
Yeah, 100%. I was debating whether like, what am I going to share about this? And so I guess the can's open now. And it's interesting actually, like we talked about this last night. Like this is like probably the definition of like an inconvenient relationship in that way, right? It's like, for me, relationships, there's probably like 3 factors that are, I guess, the forces in like friendships, romantic relationships, and all of the above. I believe they're proximity, compatibility, and effort. And so you need like those three ideally all together, then you're going to have a thriving relationship.
So you don't have proximity.
Yeah. And so you need to then compensate with compatibility and with effort. And then eventually you can build the proximity long term. I feel like so many relationships are like of convenience in that way. And I think that's why a lot of them don't last, because they like, you just see the person a lot. And like, I think about a lot of friendships in the past, because I find when you move country, then you will see whether there was true compatibility or whether there's a friendship of convenience. Because once you remove the proximity, like there was people like in university, for example, that I hung out with every day. Well, I saw them every day. We went to the same class every day. We were best friends, or we were really good friends. But then we removed the location, removed the proximity, removed the convenience, and I haven't spoken to them in years. But there'll be a couple in there that I do maintain that connection. And that's the compatibility piece. And then you make that effort.
I agree with that to a certain extent. I also just think friendships and romantic interests are different when it comes to proximity. I think you can definitely find yourself becoming more distant with your friends, but when you have a romantic interest, you naturally, it's just there's some sort of chemicals happening in your brain and your body that you want to put in more effort. So you're right. You're absolutely right. You find out that, who you can stay closer to. But like, I just feel like friendships and romantic interests, are slightly different. What made you feel this person that I'm seeing, we've survived the test of compatibility and we will get past not being in proximity with one another?
I think it was honestly just like feeling like I could be myself completely. I think in past relationships, I've sort of held back a little bit. I sometimes find like when I'm in new interactions, like you reserve yourself. People say like as you get to know somebody, they become weirder, you know what I mean? Because they become more comfortable and they feel more willing or able to, express their true selves. And I felt like that happened a lot quicker than it normally does. And that felt quite nice. And time will tell whether this is, a great story or pure delusion at this stage. But I think it's the former at this so far. Feels good at the moment and just trying to lean into it, really. Enjoying it so far, though it is challenging. It's still making me happy at this stage. So might as well keep going.
So, do you have a certain philosophy on dating that maybe like other people would raise an eyebrow or they're like, I don't know about that?
Yeah, I guess through social media and dating apps, there's this perception that like, oh, there's just this absolute abundance of opportunity and choice and like high quality partners out there that you're always looking over to see, oh, maybe there's something better out there. She not quite it. She had funny elbows, like I think I'll find someone else. Like we find just the strangest ideas to opt out of relationships or to not pursue things because I think we have this illusion of choice. And that makes us, I think, quite unhappy in the end, to be honest. How we solve it, I don't know. We're kind of deep in it now. And like, there's this belief that it's all out there. But when you look at the data, like less and less people are getting married, less and less people seem to be in happy long-term relationships. Like we're having less kids, like very alarming trends, to be honest. How we reverse it all, I'm not too sure, but I think a lot of it comes down to this paradox of choice and chasing perfection in that way. I don't think it exists. Like you're going to have to make compromises.
Very, very alarming. I was trying to see some stats and I was researching. There are only 26% of women that are actively dating right now. 74 are not dating. Yes. And
Within what age range?
don't quote me on it, but it was ranging from women in their 20s and 30s. And obviously, I think in all groups, there is that emotional exhaustion of dating. And I think part of it is this illusion of choice. And when you have so many options, you don't know what you want to do, and being on your phones and not actually like having a chance to meet someone like organically or have a cute meet cute. I can't tell you the last time I met someone, I was like, oh, how did you meet? Not at a house party, not at a coffee shop, not at the grocery store. It was an app. So, actually, I would love to get your thoughts on this. So the reason why I like came across this stat is, Bumble, the dating app. So the entire value proposition of Bumble is that it is owned by a CEO who's a woman, and she created this app because she wanted women to have more agency, more choice, and be in more control. So that means that, the woman gets to decide who she is messaging first, and then they get a response. Bumble is now removing that feature. So they're removing the swipe feature completely, and they are instead going to let AI match you. And they're two AI bots, AI concierge, talking to one another. Like, I want to watch the perfect movie. So now my AI is talking to the other AI, be like, oh, this is a movie that you should watch. It's ridiculous. We're letting AI choose people. And I was going to ask you, what are you pissed about in dating? Here I am answering it myself. I don't think we need more machines. I don't think we need that. Like, rather than understanding what is causing the emotional exhaustion, like, you choose to do this. And my conspiracy theory is that this is being done to solve the male loneliness epidemic, because I'm sorry to say their profiles are not attractive and they're not swiping on them. And now AI is going to push their profiles to us. So that's my take.
Is AI going to be better than us? I don't know. Probably not. But I mean, what we're doing now doesn't seem to be working. I think we're digging a deeper hole here. I think just like fundamentally, like, it seems like relationships and families just are no longer like sexy in that way. Like, nobody in the amount of people who are my age who are who have kids and stuff, so little. Where you go back 30 years ago, like, if you're 30, you probably have had your first set of kids. I saw an interesting stat. So if you take like the women who are 16 now, only 60% of them, so 40% of them won't have any kids in their whole lifetime. So the next generation of girls coming into the world, nearly half of them aren't having any children. And I think that's the purpose of life. And that's like ultimately, I think, listen, not every relationship has to have children, but I think that's probably like one of the big ticket items to do, right? And so it's like becoming less interesting for our generation. This obsession with travel, I'm probably not helping, where it's like people they would rather go travel and see the world than have a career and have a relationship. Like, they're willing to forego those and to kick the can down the road, and be like, we'll do it a little bit later. But as time gets on, it becomes harder and harder to find, I think, your person. And like, there is a time limit to some extent, right?
Why do you think that number is so high? Why do you think women are choosing less and less to have kids?
There's a few factors. I think it's very difficult, right, to have kids. I think finance gets talked about a lot. I think it is a factor for sure. Like, it does add an element of stress. I think women more broadly now, right, they want to have careers, and like, fair enough. But if you want to have a big career, it's very hard to also facilitate children. And so like, I empathize with that. I don't, like, as a guy, you don't necessarily have the same like choice. Like, you have to give up something in a way. As a guy, you don't have to, go through pregnancy and do birth. And so you're able to typically maintain a career and still have a family. Where for women, on average, it's obviously a lot harder. And so I think this desire to want to have big, successful careers, to want to travel and to do all these things, completely fair enough. But that is going to have an impact downstream on the amount of women having kids. Like, we're completely reliant on that in that way. We get to, I guess, have a little bit more freedom in that way, for sure. And the sentiment between men and women is getting worse as well, which is kind of alarming, I feel like. Like, there's definitely this perception that, like, I forget the exact stat here, but they essentially look to, like, what is the sentiment of men towards women and women towards men? And on average, women had more than 2 times more negative sentiment towards men than men had towards women. And like, the perception of like, there's not that many quality guys out there anymore is much higher than the perception that there aren't quality women out there. But I think the quality is all the same. It's just the perception of what's out there.
What do you think is invoking this reaction that there aren't good men there? Like, do you think that reaction for women is justified?
I think a lot of it's driven by just media and culture, right? Like negative press sells and things like that. And so you like, there's been a few like the Me Too movement and a few like I guess waves that have like shifted this thinking. And yeah, I think it's making the population unhappier. There needs to be sacrifices. Like relationships are all about sacrifice ultimately. And like just because of biology, like you can't change. Like if we could change that men are now having the babies, then you could sort of even it out over time. But like unfortunately that doesn't exist. And I think we need to do everything we can within policies and things like that to encourage behaviors, to have children, to have families, to like be happy together, because I think that is the happiest version of ourselves. And like, there's some things that we could be doing at like top level and then just like individually.
Yeah, I can see the things that you're saying from your perspective and experience, but perspective is all about the things that you've lived through. And I think having kids with a partner that is not healthy is a liability. And for a woman to have a child with a liability only makes her life 10 times harder than it already is. Someone said this comment to me the other day and I laughed in his face. He believed that women have it a lot easier than men do. And I'm like, okay, all right. And I'm not just talking about women. I'm talking about women in all other marginalized groups that you have, right? I reject this idea that men have it harder. And I also think when you were talking about media, I think media is a double-edged sword. Like, yes, sometimes the content may be exaggerated, may not be 100% accurate and taken out of context. But because of media, we are also seeing a lot of the horrible things that are happening to women in marginalized groups. And I think that is what is invoking this reaction of staying away from people that are not good. Like, I can look up so many stats of how many, I think no women suffered by getting married late. I think she died by getting married to the wrong person. So I have very strong opinions on this.
Yeah, we're faced with very different challenges. I would say no is objectively easier or harder. There's definitely a lot of challenges that guys face that women don't necessarily have to face and vice versa. That dialogue in general, I think, is ultimately unhealthy. Like as soon as we get into like the who has it harder or who has it easier, then I think we're already losing in that way.
But
So I
it's
think
not
we
that.
should be
It's not
looking
that.
to.
You can't fix the problem if you're not acknowledging the challenges. So it's not like who's winning, but it's just saying, do you agree that these are the issues that are currently happening? Because if you can't acknowledge that or you don't have awareness about it, how are you going to work towards finding a solution? You know? So acknowledging
And I
it.
think like a lot of that acknowledgement has definitely happened. I think, like, to be honest, I think the pendulum has swung almost too far now. And that's causing a lot of issues now too. Like for the longest time, women were.
What do you mean by that? Give me an example.
So for the longest time, right, like 50 years ago, like, women couldn't vote, but like they were oppressed and marginalized in that way. And so there's been a lot of work done to make more equal playing ground, which I think awesome. Like that's great. The feminism movement ideally was to create equal playing field, but it sometimes feels like now it's like, okay, we want to actually be given more benefit. And then you look at, okay, what's happening downstream, education, loneliness, depression, suicide, like men are the subject. We have much higher rates in pretty much every case. And I think a lot of that is because the pendulum swung so far the other way, like to help women, to get them into power, to get them into opportunities and roles. And like we did a lot of great work there, but now there's a lot of men have been left. And now a lot of men are struggling. I feel like we're probably struggling more as a gender now, but like when you look at the stats, there's a lot of pain in the male world at the moment because we weren't really looked at anymore because we had it great. And then we worked on, bringing women back up. And then the men have just sort of struggled and like not here to be like, oh, boo hoo, like just pull up your bootstraps and get it done. But a lot of the policies that ended up getting implemented have negatively impacted men as well and made it harder for them to live successful lives.
So as a result of women getting freedom and having the ability to buy property, vote, build a career, the effect is that men are struggling. But I don't think that's what's happening. Like, I don't understand how giving the same opportunities to women that men have, like feminism was about expanding rights and opportunities for women, right? And I personally don't think that those things have gone too far. Women are still not getting the paid like the same as men. So I don't think that feminism is the cause of that. I think if you want to talk about loneliness, declining marriage rates, or difficulty in dating, could it not be technology, social media, dating apps, changing working patterns, the economic pressures, rising expectations? Like, I reject this idea that like men are suffering because now women have more choices and freedom and problem. I actually think what's really happening and why men are struggling is they no longer have the power and women are no longer dependent on them. Your grandparents were married and stayed in that marriage because your grandmother couldn't open up a bank account. And now that same person can open up a bank account. So they're leaving more men that are not acting in a way of a healthy partner. And I will vouch for that as long as I can, even if the marriage rate goes to 0%. Because at the end of the day, you're still allowing yourself to have equal opportunities and be in like a safe environment and leaving toxic relationships. That's why I always say divorce is chic. If you're in a relationship or a situation that is toxic and you now have the resources and opportunity to leave, that should be good if you've tried everything else, you know?
I agree with the sentiment that like there should be equal opportunity and the choice and the power and like that should be equal. And I think that more or less we're getting pretty close, I would say. Where I guess my question lies is whether this chase for this, independence, this power and this, not depending on anyone, whether that's actually making people happier.
I'm not saying hyper independence is the answer, but I think it goes back to what makes you emotionally safe to be dependent or have that like interdependence that's healthy, right? You need to feel safe. You need to trust the person. And I think you're not seeing those qualities come up because it's so different, Joseph. Like my experience going on a first date is very different than your experience going on a first date. And it's only because there's actual things that are happening that you think it can happen to you because you are never the exception. You're always like you could be the rule, you know? So it's just it's messed up. And I don't think we're pushing this narrative of having hyper independence. I think the narrative is that you should be able to make the decision for yourself and not have it be made for you just because you don't have equal resources. That's what it is.
Yeah, I hear you there. I guess I question sometimes whether this chase for it is also like an illusion in that way, or like it's not actually on average making most people happy. Like I think, there's been a big shift, for example, away from like traditional marriages. And, everyone's like, do what makes you happy ultimately. But when you look at like the data and things like that, it's like, are people happier now in these untraditional marriages where both, you have two power couples working and not spending any time with their kids and both pushing for careers or not getting in relationships at all? Like I question whether this is actually the way forward. Like it is a way forward, but is it the one that's going to produce the most amount of like happiness, fulfillment, and joy? Like I think like family is the thing. Like I don't think we were birthed on the planet to climb the corporate ladder. That's what I feel like has been romanticized now. It's like everybody's like, oh, I want to have the career, I want to travel, I want to do this, I want to do that. I think that our purpose is actually to like find a person and raise kids. Like that's probably it. We are working to facilitate that. But I think now it's all like the focus is all about this opportunity and building these great careers. And like, fair enough, if you want to go do that and if it truly makes you happy, awesome. But I think for the majority of people, like what truly makes you happy is finding somebody. And that, unfortunately, for both sides will require like compromise. Like you're going to have to depend on someone. It's something that I'm trying to learn now. I've been hyper independent all my life. And so the whole idea of like depending on somebody for something is really scary. And like, it's not easy and you have to sacrifice things. And like, I'm far from having it figured it out, let's be clear. But I'm starting to get, I guess, more open and excited to that idea. And just trying to go down that path and see where it leads. But I feel like less and less people are willing to do that now, is what it feels like. Like we're in a hyper individualistic culture, especially in the Western world. And you look at like, living in Asia here, more collectivist communities, much bigger families, people marry earlier, people seem happy, people have less, people don't have nice cars, they're not trying to fight for all this corporate gain and money. They just live simpler lives. And I would argue that they look a lot happier than the Western world. Like the Western world, I feel like it's full of, disappointed people who are lonely, who are not happy with their careers, they're not fulfilled, they're not in meaningful relationships, because I think we're just trying so hard to become like this great individual when I think the best version of ourselves is likely with somebody else.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty about having so many people in the world. Everyone has different purposes, and you are on the hunt to find someone that complements your purpose. I'm not talking about the argument. Again, I don't want to live in this optimized world where all you care about is your ROI on life is simply because like where you are in the corporate thing. Like that's not what I'm saying. I think that is toxic. I think we're having two different conversations. I'm just saying that the circumstances have allowed people everywhere to have more choice. Some of that choice is affecting us negatively, which is the illusion of choices that the grass is always greener. But I think the conversation where it went to earlier is why are more and more women choosing not to date and have kids when some people could think that is the purpose, but that is not the purpose in everyone's life. And now it's only coming forward because we don't need to make it the purpose of our lives. We don't have to be in a marriage for stability, for survival. It's what are we looking for now? We're looking for companionship. We're looking for a partner and a fulfilling relationship. And I think a lot of people are struggling with how to show up that way when they haven't been conditioned to learn that. Again, I hate to make it a gender thing, but it's a conversation that I heard. Like, men can't express their emotions. They're going to get called a pussy or they can't cry. They can't do this. Men were also not taught how to hit people and cheat on people, and they've still learned those behaviors. So I'm just saying, you do have the ability to learn certain behaviors if you want to make a difference and change yourself. So I sometimes do reject that argument that, we don't know how to cry, we don't know how to build emotional intimacy with our friends. But on the other side of the thing, there are a lot of men that are doing that. They are going to therapy. They are like talking to their friends and getting help and taking that. So like, again, just like you just have to take that leap and decide you want to make a change within yourself and do better. Like actually do better.
Both populations need to come to the party more, to be honest. It's a challenging world out there in the moment, the modern dating sphere and like trying to navigate it all. But I'm still very hopeful about it, to be honest. And like,
Me too.
I know I hear a lot online. I post about this topic and people mess me like, I've given up. I've conceded that I'm just going to be single all my life. I'm like, this is the worst thing you can possibly do. They say it's responsible for 70% of a person's happiness is their interpersonal relationships. So, if you're not going to focus on that, we're going to have a bad time. And now AI is coming in. I don't know if AI is going to be able to replace interpersonal connection, at least not yet.
No, and I know what you're saying. Like, as humans, we are relational creatures. We cannot, think that it's okay if we'll be okay if we have no one in our lives. Like, no, I think companionship is very important. It actually increases serotonin, dopamine. I think where the argument comes into play is how much are you willing to trade off just for the sake of not being alone. Because that brings, like, if you're with the wrong person, that brings you a different type of loneliness and a different type of unhappiness. So finding that balance of still not being so hyper independent and allowing yourself to like go on dates, like as long as you're open to the process, you're doing it in a way. And if it's still not working out for you, I don't think then you should like be with someone just for the sake of being with someone. You can have other platonic relationships that fulfill you. Something that I like to end the conversation with is asking you a question that my previous guest left for you. And then I will ask you a question to leave for my next guest. So, based on where you are in your life, what advice do you think your best friend would give you for like your next step?
Just be open. I'm typically avoidant when it comes to relationships, conflict and things like that. And so it's easier to just not do the thing, right? It's safer to not try, to not go on the date, to not put yourself out there, to not disclose something that maybe you're embarrassed about or things like that. And so I think just swing more, go for it. Like, what do you got to lose? Staying safe in your little cocoon and like not going out in the world, like it's not going to solve anything. And like, I would encourage everyone to, go out on more dates and meet people and be open and be yourself and like be your true self as well. There's no point going on a date and like putting on this facade that I've definitely, I think, done in the past, not like intentionally, but sort of unconsciously in ways. Just be open, go for it. It takes one connection, one hello, one interaction, your whole life can change. Like one person can really change the entire trajectory of your life. And that can happen at any instant. And like, I'm quite optimistic that can happen for anyone. That fear has held me back from doing a lot of things in my life. Pretty much 99% of the time doing it has only resulted in positive outcomes.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Where is Daredevil? I'm right here.
Don't miss the return of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
So what's next?
I feel liberated.
We're gonna take this city back.
Over medicated.
In an all-new season, now streaming only on Disney+.
They're hunting us. It's time we started hunting them.
I can work with that.
This should be tons of fun.
Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, now streaming only on Disney+.
I've been going for it a lot more too. So I like that advice. What is your question for my next guest?
What is the most important trait that you look for in a significant other?
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. We will ask that to our next guest. And just out of curiosity, what is your most important trait that you look for?
I think it's self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Okay. Josef, if someone wants to find you on socials, do you want to shamelessly plug them now?
At Josef Who, JosefWho, on mostly Instagram. I'm on TikTok and YouTube as well. But yeah, post everything within travel, relationships, fitness, figuring out life in your 30s and all that good stuff. So yeah, thanks for having me on. It was my first podcast experience, so it was a pleasure.
This conversation and episode wasn't just about travel. You know, it wasn't just about quitting your job. And we talked a lot about freedom and choice. But I think the main tone of it was having the opportunity and choice, and then also the courage to question the script that you've been handed. Also admitting that what success looks like on paper may not be something that's fulfilling you or it's what you actually want. And yeah, I think you and I may not agree on everything, but I do appreciate anyone who is willing to ask themselves difficult questions and having a stance. I think the worst thing you can do in life is not having a stance. So as long as you have a stance, that's a good starting point. But yeah, thank you so much, Josef, for spending time with us today. And any final words before we let you go?
Nothing good in life is free, and just go for it, eh? That's it. No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And as always, everyone, we will see you next week on More Lovely. And until then, you heard Josef. Go for it. Lovely is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan and Shay Yu, written by me, Mahek. Theme music, sound design, and editing by Lou Raskin. Other music by Epidemic Sound. See you next week for More Lovely.